I love Wizard101. Now, you probably did not expect the video to start out this way, but I do want you guys to know that this video is going to kind of air out my frustrations with the game, along with the communities as well. And do keep in mind, I am someone who has 7 max wizards. I've been relatively high rank on all of them, except for maybe one school. And I've also done some crazy shit, like be on vacation in the ocean, literally texting the developers, trying to help them make a better game. So people who are always out here being like, oh, Liam's just talking shit about the game, bashing the game, that's really not the case. And, you know, it kind of frustrates me, I'll be honest right off the bat here, guys, because I really go out of my way to talk to the devs every day. And like I said, I was on vacation, literally on a ferry, like on the West Coast, talking to the devs, and people just think I hate this game for some reason, which is insane. But in today's video, I've basically made some points, and I actually kind of have a script for once in my life as well, which is really good. So hopefully it's easier to follow along than my, usual Yap Fest videos. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into things right away here. So the first thing I have on my list as to why Wiz will never be balanced is going to be the developer disconnects. Now, a developer disconnect is basically when the community can agree on something and the developers simply just don't realize it. So, a very good example that's happened the past year is when the 3 shield schools, which is Ice, Death, and Myth, were all running the meta. The devs actually put out an update that just buffed shield gambits. That's all it did, right? So that's a good example of a developer disconnect, right? The entire community is complaining about shield gambits being too good. They are the only schools queuing. And what did they do the next update? They buff up the shield gambits, right? So that's what I mean by a developer disconnect. And there's plenty of these that go around, like you could talk about school identity with this as well. And this becomes very frustrating when there's a lot of time that goes by and we don't get a lot of updates in general in Wiz. So the few updates we get, they really need to like hit the spot for the people that are playing the game. But if they don't, and they're kind of like bad, like the Shield Gambit one example I just listed, a lot of players get upset, right? So these developer disconnects still happen. I want to say they are a little less frequent than they used to be, which is a good thing in my opinion. Another point on this is going to be the raid gear, right? People have been complaining that you cannot PvP if you don't have raid gear. And the reason for that is because shads are important, but your stats are also important, right? And the free-to-play gear you get in the game isn't competitive enough. The stats with the shad to compete against people who have the raid gear because they have stats and shad, right? So again, that's kind of been a point for a long time, but the devs have refused to listen and do anything about it. And what has that resulted in? Way less players in queue than ever before. The only time we had the player population go up, to my knowledge, is when they brought back the commander robe with the stars and moons on it, which was really good. Always having more incentives in PvP is a good thing. Next, I want to talk about the opinions of people in the community, primarily around PvP balancing, right? This could affect PvE and raids as well. But basically, everyone has their own opinion on how they expect the game to look or how it plays, right? So a good example I can use here is myself, right? The whole like buff storm thing, right? I never intended for this to actually ever become a thing. I'll be completely real with you guys, okay? But even though some people out there in the community thought Storm was like the holy grail when it had objectively been the worst school for about 2 or 3 years, again, there's data to back this up, right? So you cannot argue otherwise. There was still people in the game who would argue, oh my god, it's such a good school. Even though that's a real thing, right? There's no storms at the top of the leaderboard. There's always bottom 3, bottom 2 in the win rates. Everyone has a different look on how the game should be. You can even look at stuff like jading, right? There's some people in the game who think jading is actually a strategy, which I could never agree with that. And I think most of the community would agree with that and honestly kind of laugh at those people. No offense if you're one of them. but I'm not going to argue about cheating in this video. My point is the opinions are so different, and it's kind of weird because a lot of the more crazier takes generally come from more low ranked people, and the more high ranked people kind of have more valid takes because they've actually climbed the ranks. They understand why certain cards don't work and why certain cards do. A very recent example is going to be spell fusion, right? I'm someone who was very skeptical of it at the start, and then as time went on and I listened to more, people's opinions, I really thought about it, gave some time, played a little bit on test realm, I can kind of see it's not going to really affect the game. I see a lot of people out there freaking out saying, oh, spell fusion is going to ruin the game. This is the last update where Wiz PvP will be Wiz PvP. But guys, I'm telling you, unless like you're a recruit and it's like the wild wild west down there anyways, it already is, and it will be next update. Once you get past that, it's barely going to affect the game. The only thing in the spell fusion update that will affect PvP is the dual school damage pierce duels. That's it. And maybe 2 spell fusion cards. That's it. Back on point here in terms of the opinions, I do think it's important for the devs to listen to both low rank and high ranks, because some low rank people honestly do have some good takes. Like, you see a lot of noobs out there trying stuff, and then they'll actually get a good player, and that good player will be like, wait, I can actually cook and build off that idea, right? So listening to the more noobs or low rank people isn't really a bad thing. However, I am of the opinion that the game should be balanced around the high ranks, right? Because if anybody puts in the time and effort to get better, they should be rewarded for that, right? So that's kind of just like a general philosophy I have in any game. There should always be skill expression at the top of the ceiling, no matter what. The next point, I'm going to build off the developer disconnects, and this one is going to be the fact of the matter, they don't really listen to the community. Now, I can't really say that in entirely good faith because they do, but at the same time, they don't. And I can bring up good examples here, right? We have a great pity system in Walroo, right? From Novus to Walroo, they listened there, right? Sometimes with PvP updates, they do listen. However, there are times where they just simply ignore problems, right? So if we look at stuff like Gearhead has been broken since basically it came out, right? And we're just now getting a nerf, I think, 2 years and some later. Same thing with Ice Blimp, right? When this came out, everyone said this is objectively broken. Years later, it's still in the game. Yeah, that's all the way back in the Motorist meta, the Ice Blimp came out. So that's like 3.5 years ago. Holy cow, that's crazy to think that time went by. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, you have these big problems, or jading, right? You have these very big problems in the community, and they refuse to do anything about it or listen to us as a community about it when everyone agrees, yeah, they're too good. It shouldn't take 2 years for it to get fixed when you are a paying member. That's just unacceptable. And I do like to give them the benefit of the doubt and look on the bright side with some of these things, but I think ultimately they just either can't make up their mind, or it takes too much time for them to make a simple change, which, I mean, I don't really know how things work over there at KingsIsle. I don't work there, obviously, but that's the 2 conclusions I have. They just don't know what they're doing, or they just simply cannot make a simple fix because they don't have the time to, or the funding or something. I don't know how it works over there. Another example is shield gambits, right? Ever since shield gambits came out, people were like, hey, these are stupid. And now the developers, instead of listening to us, they have audited shield gambits, I think roughly about 3 or 4 times, and to this day they are still way too good. That is why you see everyone running like maximum shield counters on everything, right? Which is why you hear people are like, oh, well, shield gambits are so bad now, because everyone has to giga set for them, because by nature they are insanely busted, and they're the best gambits in the game, right? So that's why shield gambits aren't good right now, is because everyone has to giga set because they are busted, now that we actually have counters that are semi-viable, right? So that kind of is what it is. But Instead of listening to the community in the first place and solving the problem, they ignored us and did their 3 or 4 audits, and we're still in a spot where shield gambits are still way too damn good. But the band-aid solution is everyone is just giga set for them right now because they are broken at nature. Next up, I want to talk about the system balancing. So this is a very weird way to design games. I have been playing competitive games my whole life. I have never seen anything like this. Granted, I play like FPS mostly, like COD, Destiny, you know, like Valorant, that kind of thing, etc. Right? Fortnite a little bit too, Apex a little bit too. But point is, basically, when the community is talking about a specific card or a specific school being too good, instead of again basically addressing that issue and directly going at it, as you know, generally good developers would do, they instead sit there and look at the game as a systematic whole and basically ruin things for other schools when it's only a problem on one school. Now, there's a lot of examples for this. I could use Ice with their shield gambit, right? Ice for a while has been, you know, kind of mid to bad, right? And the Death and the Myth shield gambits are just way more oppressive, right? You hear about Mythgen being busted all the time, but not so much about Ice Scion, even though they are the same card. Mythgen itself is just a whole problem because of Myth being what Myth is, right? That's not anything to do with Ice or Death, really. That's just a Myth problem. Or if we look at healing, right? Life, Fire, and Storm are the healing schools, right? Now, generally, Fire and Storm can't heal anywhere near as good as a Life can, right? Obviously, Storm can heal pretty well, but if a good player just clicks the counter card instantly, the Storm's going to fall over and die. That kind of is what it is. However, with a Life, if you do that, it's not lights out. From, like, you know, if you counter the Life's healing, they're still in the game, right? You'd have to like counter them 3 times. So instead of attacking Life and the jading problem, they are systematically going to be nerfing heals probably in the future when they already don't work that well on a Fire and a Storm, because if the people just click the counters and you die, well, you know, that seems to be a different problem for Fire and Storm, and that doesn't seem to affect Life. Why does it not affect Life? We should be looking to that as developers. Why Life can get away with that, but Storm and Fire can't get away with that, right? But we're going to nerf all 3 schools and bring them down when it's only a problem on one of those schools. Anyways, that's everything I got for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and sub if you made it this far. If not, that's okay. I appreciate you watching this far. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say, though. Like, do you agree with these points? Is there anything else I should have added in the video? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on my next video, which probably will be when Test Realm is in Live Realm, the Selenopolis update. So, thanks for watching, and take care.